Hi, my name is Danielle Neely, your host of Industry Edge Podcast, where we talk with leaders working in and for some of the hardest working industries, such as manufacturing, distribution, construction, and more. This episode is brought to you by K&C Marketing. K&C is a full-service marketing agency that helps B2B industrial companies grow their brand and increase sales. They serve as a fully outsourced marketing partner or supplement in-house marketing teams. To learn more about K&C's brand development, marketing, and website design services, visit kncmarketingagency.com. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I have to give a big shout out to Dustin Dowdy of Southeastern Tank and Custom Pumping Controls for introducing me to her. On today's episode, I'm joined by Michelle Boykin, Chief Operating Officer of Rackley Roofing out of Nashville, Tennessee. She's a powerhouse in the roofing industry and heavily involved in the National Women in Roofing, where she's served as the chair in 2022 and was also honored with the prestigious WORLD award that same year. Under her leadership, Rackley Roofing was named the Commercial Roofing Contractor of the Year in 2022 by Roofing Contractor magazine. Michelle's also deeply rooted in the commercial real estate community as the past chair of Crew Nashville, serving on their board of directors since 2016. When she's not busy leading the charge in her industry, Michelle spends time with her husband, Keith, of 20 years, and their two sons that are 17 and 10. Michelle, so happy to have you here. Thank you for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So first one's easy. Tell us a little bit about you and what Rackley Roofing does.
Yeah, so Rackley Roofing has been in business since 1974. We are a commercial roofing company out of Nashville, well, Lebanon, Tennessee, which is right outside of Nashville. We have an office in Knoxville as well. So we basically service all of Tennessee with some growth opportunities happening in the next couple of years. We focus mainly on service. So we really want to make sure that we're keeping our clients dry and prolonging the life of their buildings as long as we can. Dustin is a customer of ours, so he's been through that entire thing with us, which has been fun. So that's what we do. We are also heavily involved in sports. So we are the official roofer of the Tennessee Titans. We are the official roofer of the Nashville Super Speedway. Very heavily involved in racing. Our owner, President Curtis Sutton, his son races and actually will do full time in the NASCAR Truck Series next year, which is going to be fun. So lots of things happening that is outside of roofing, but also adds a little bit of flavor to who we are as a company. I have been with the company since 2010. I've been in roofing since 2008. I started out at Rackley as the receptionist, and then I moved into a service coordinator role, service manager, vice president of service, and then chief operating officer. And then we work off of EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System, and I am our integrator as well. So that's a little bit about me. I went to school for accounting and decided that I never wanted to do accounting ever in my life, but I have the degree, so there's that. And yeah, so got into roofing by accident as one does and have loved it and I've been in the industry ever since and it's a great place to be and my kids love that their mom is a powerhouse in a male dominated industry because I've got boys and I'm surrounded by boys no matter where I go. My husband, my two sons, so lots of fun.
Love it. You got to keep them, we got to keep them wrangled in. The men need it. I love that. You said you kind of fell into it by accident. I feel like that's kind of a repeated thing that I've heard when I've talked with people is like, no, I didn't dream of doing this. But what kind of first drew you in? What was that? What did that look like? You said you started as a receptionist. What kind of made you take the job? Like what sold you on it back then?
Yeah, we joke in the industry that it's kind of like the mafia. Once you're in, you can't get out. But it really kind of is true. Yeah, so I went to school for accounting. I was in property management at the time, and my husband is a realtor, and the market was crashing in 2008, and I was actually looking for him a job. And in the process, found myself one instead. It really intrigued me. There was an ad in the paper back when there was papers to look at for jobs, and it
Mhm.
said all these different qualifications that I had. And then it said accounting experience not required, but a plus. And I had an accounting degree. And then it said Spanish speaking not required, but a plus. And I'm not fluent, but I'm pretty close. So it was
Oh,
sort of
wow.
like the heavens, the clouds opened and the heavens opened and said, hey, this is for you. So I applied and got the job.
Awesome. So once you were in, how did you like, you went through all of these various roles, which obviously gave you a ton of experience kind of touching all parts of the organization before you stepped into this role. So how do you feel like taking all of those on has helped shape your leadership style that you do now?
I have always worked in areas that customer service was of importance. Started out in retail doing the things that teenagers do, working at clothing stores and things like that. So customer service was always a passion of mine. And in the role that I was in, I was able to grow and really help sort of create this customer service organization that we currently have now and start it from scratch. When I came over in 2010, we were basically just installing roofs. There was no service component to that. So I was able to bring some of that along, hit a lot of road bumps, learned a lot along the way, but really focused on our customers, and that helped us grow. And so the more that we did that, the faster I was able to move up in the company
Mhm.
and, hire people that could also help out and do the things that needed to be done. So that for me, leadership is more about how you empower everybody else to do their part. I am not a salesperson. That's just not my thing. I'm an introvert. I'm kind of shy depending on the situation that I'm in. I can do public speaking and things like that, but usually I'm not the person that's like knocking on a door saying, "Hey, give us your business." That's just not who I am. So let's hire the folks that do that. And so that's kind of what we've done is we've said, "Okay, well, you're great at this other person is great at that. Let's focus on the strengths." And so that's been very helpful in the process.
Yep, I love that. It's about putting the right people in the right seat on the bus. That's literally what Dustin said when I was talking with him. He was like, somebody may be a great worker and great at what they do, but they just might not be in that right spot. So being to identify what somebody's skills are, what their personality is, and putting it in the right spot is going to be able to, it changes everything. I love
It
that.
really does, yeah.
So you have so many awards. You're very involved in the roofing world. So which ones are you most proud of and why?
I think I am most proud of the World Award from National Women in Roofing. National Women in Roofing is an organization that started, I believe, in 2016, and I was among some of the first members. And really getting to know those folks and becoming part of that team and becoming part of that organization, that was huge for me as far as growing my leadership and then growing just who I am as a person. So to be recognized on the backside of that, to say, "Hey, you did all these great things, and now you're helping the next person, the next generation of roofing to come in and helping them learn how to be better at what they're doing," that to me has meant the most, I think, personally. So we've won a lot of awards. Our company got Innovator of the Year, the very first one that was given out, which was big for us. That was through a group called RT3 Roofing Technology Think Tank. Of course, winning, Roofing Contractor of the Year is kind of like our Super Bowl, so that's huge. Um, but yeah, I would say personally, the World Award has probably meant the most to me.
I love that. I love that. So your leadership has clearly made a big impact on Rackley and the culture and the success, I'm sure. What are some of the key lessons that you've learned over leading the team, starting from where you were and now where you are? What are some of those lessons that you've learned?
I think one of the hardest lessons that I learned very early on was that I could not hold someone back because they were helping me. We had a situation where we had a guy that was a fabulous foreman for us, and he really needed to be in a superintendent role. It was time for him to move to a better position. But I relied on him so heavily in the role that he was in. And it wasn't until someone pointed it out to me that, "Hey, you're holding this guy back," that I had to stop and say, "You know what, you're right." And I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. So letting him grow and become more within the company was huge for me. So that's a leadership lesson, and it goes back to the right person, right seat. Somebody might be the right person for what you need at the moment, but it might not be the right seat ultimately. Even if it's detrimental to you, it's better for the company. So
Mhm.
that was one of those instances, and we've had some others throughout the years where it's like, "Man, this person's great at." This thing, but they really need to grow. And in order to do that, I have to let them do that. So
Yeah.
that's been big. Um, I think Leadership wise, listening more than you speak, which as an introvert is a little bit easier said than done for somebody like me rather than like a visionary type leader that wants to speak, but really listening and not just letting someone talk, but actually listening to what they have to say and what they're actually trying to say, because sometimes you miss the nuances of what they're really trying to tell you. So just stopping and actually listening to what's being said.
Yeah, that's the emotional intelligence piece. I feel like that is something that is so overlooked in leadership and like being that's all about listening and actually hearing what they're saying versus talking, pretending to listen and then never actually doing anything. People can see through it. It's just like a relationship with your husband or your friend or anything like that. You can tell when somebody is not truly invested or listening to you. So I love that and I completely agree. So what has your experience, you said, you know, you're in a male dominated space. So what has that been like in your perspective on leadership and in a traditionally male dominated role? How have you been able to like push through and be like, no, I'm in charge? And have you had any challenges with that?
You know, Rackley's a really great company, and we have had great people that have made that part easy for me. So I feel like I'm blessed in a lot of ways that some women may not be in if they're also in roofing. Um, I've never been disrespected by anyone here at the company. And if I
Mhm.
have, it's been dealt with quickly and promptly, and it wasn't even something that was on my radar. But
Mhm.
a lot of times it's outside influence that happens. I remember there was this one time I got a phone call. I think I was a service manager at this point, and I got a phone call from a guy who said, "Hey, I've got a question about, a issue that I have in my building." And I'm like, "Great, let me help you." And he said, "No, I need to talk to someone, that has this information." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And, sort of this back and forth keeps going on for a while to the point that he finally, he's like, "No, I need to talk to, the person that's in charge." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. How can I help you?" And then he finally said, "I need to speak to the man in charge." And I said, "I am the man in charge."
Ooh,
And
yeah,
and
I
I was
love
I was kind about it, I wasn't
that.
mean about it.
You
But
don't come across as somebody who has a mean bone in their body, so I get that.
but I did, I am the man in charge.
Mhm.
And he kind of was taken aback, and he said, "I need to speak to your boss." And I said, "Great." So I put him on hold. And I, said, "Hey," I told my boss, I said, "Hey, there's this guy that wants to speak with you," and kind of gave him a little bit of what was going on, not much. And he
Mhm.
picks up the phone and he says, "Hey, how can I help you?" And so then the guy goes into, "Hey, I've got a question about my building." And he said, "Oh, I have no idea. Michelle knows all that. You really need to talk to her." And just
Ooh.
hands the phone back to me. And so it was this level of just understanding that just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I don't know what I'm speaking about. And
Mhm.
to have my boss have my back on that and really be there and support that was very helpful. Um, in the industry itself, it's usually more of a ignorance, and I do it too. I'm just as guilty. But I remember I did a presentation a couple of years ago, and I put a picture up of me and my husband. My husband is 5'11", redhead with a beard, typical dude. And I'm in a room speaking to other contractors. So there's 300, roofing owners in the room. And I said, "This is me and my husband. Does my husband look like a roofer?" And everybody in the room is just nodding their heads. And I said, "What does a roofer look like?" And then it was just this, you could feel the tension in the room build. And I just started asking, is it female? Is it male? Is it white? Is it black? Is it Asian? Is it Hispanic? Is it tall? Is it short? Is it fat? Is it skinny? All these things. And the idea is we don't know what a roofer looks like. A roofer is a roofer, period. And really opening up the eyes that women can be in roofing, that it doesn't have to be the typical stereotypical thing that you think a roofer looks like, whatever that is in your area, because it does vary depending on where you live. But there's sort of that idea that it's got to be a certain type of person, and it doesn't. So
Mhm.
really breaking those stereotypes has been big for us. And we have women on the roof, and we have a diversified workforce. So we,
Mhm.
we really try to focus on who's best suited for the role, not what do they look like.
I love that. I love that. Most of our clients are in that kind of rugged industrial space, and people have asked us that question before of like, we have a all female team currently. They're like, how is that? And I've always said, I said, this has been one of our greatest strengths, if anything else, like the perspective that we can bring on a very male dominated spaces has been able to work in our favor. And our skill set is separate from that. You know what I mean? Like connecting those two is not even a good comparison. But I always just have said, if anything, it's helped even more in those industries. So I love that. I love that. So you've achieved so much already. So has Rackley. What are some of like the big goals or big projects? You said I heard expansion potentially, right? So what are some of those goals on the horizon for you guys?
Well, we hit one of our goals this past year. We had been struggling with space, and so we outgrew our corporate office, which was about an hour east of Nashville. And we started buying some buildings across the state, and it really separated us, and we could feel it in our culture, just being separated from one another. So in September, we moved into our new corporate headquarters, which is in Lebanon, Tennessee, and brought everybody in from the Middle Tennessee offices into this one office, which has been very helpful. And we're seeing that culture already shift back to what we used to have, which is great. We do have an office in Knoxville, but I mean, that's way too far for somebody to drive every day. But it's been um, a great group there, and their culture is great as well. But one of the things that we wanted to do with this sort of bringing everybody back in house is get to the point that we can continue to grow as a company. So we are looking at expansion. Right now, we're looking at the North Carolina market. As I mentioned, our owner, his son is racing, and our owner is part owner of a race team as well. And North Carolina is the place for racing. If that I didn't know that until we got into racing, but apparently that's where all the things are. So we're looking at the North Carolina market to expand, but also the surrounding states of Tennessee is something that we're looking at very heavily as part of our organic growth strategy. So lots of growth for 2025, lots of moving and shaking and getting better at what we do.
Yeah, lots of work for an integrator. I
Yes.
also That's a lot of putting people in the right seat and planning and making sure that you can hone the visionary in to make sure, hey, we got to be able to service and do a good job at this. Love the vision, but now let's make a plan for it, right? I
Exactly, yes.
I love that. What was my next question? There's big goals on the horizon. Oh, how many people, you said you brought everybody back in-house. How many people do you guys have in Knoxville and then at the Lebanon branch and then kind of service people out on the out on like mobile?
So we have about 200 employees total. The Knoxville office or the Knoxville branch is probably 40% of that, and the Nashville branch is, 60% of that. Not everybody's in an office. A lot of folks are just in the field. They're in here once a month or so for some. We try to get everybody together for like a service or a production meeting, just that everybody can see each other's faces. But really, they're going straight from their houses to job sites.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, about 60-40 is the split there.
Okay.
Um, and then we strategically have folks across, that live in certain areas. So, like if there's a roof leak, it's raining today. If there's a roof leak, they can get there quicker than if they live, if let's say there's a roof leak in Franklin, and I've got somebody that lives in Franklin versus they live in Portland, Tennessee. It would take them a while to get there. So, those sorts of things we look at as well.
Yeah, that's super smart. How do we work with a lot of industries that have a really heavy service division, and service makes up a majority of a lot of our clients. And how do you guys come, they're not in the office. They don't always have that personal connection to a team, maybe. How do you guys help, spread like your culture and the thing that you've got going on in the office and making those people feel just as valued and as a part of the organization. Do you guys feel like you found some certain things that have worked really well with keeping those employees engaged and retained? Yeah, that's something
Yeah,
that we.
so we used to do monthly meetings with our field teams. And we started that many, many years ago when we were smaller and we could basically fit everybody into one conference room. And as we've grown, it's harder and harder to do that. We do still do monthly meetings, but they're typically outside or they're in our warehouse and we get everybody together. But we feel like that monthly cadence is really helpful because we're reminding them of our core values, we're reminding them of what our goals are, we're reminding them of the things that we need to work on. It also gives them a chance to talk about what's going on in their lives, who's having babies, whose kids are graduating, all the fun things that are going on. And it really gets that connection with the office staff and the field staff together. We stopped it when COVID was happening and you could just see the decline.
Mhm.
So we probably missed that for about 6 months. And we said, we've got to do this. We've got to figure it. So we got, as everyone did, got very creative with how we met and did all the things, but definitely have that monthly cadence. We also, the field staff is talking with they typically have an assigned, what I'll call a service coordinator. I'm just talking about service. We do also do re-roofing and new construction as well. That's a little bit different. But as far as the service teams go, they're talking with their service coordinators multiple times a day. So there's a lot of communication happening. They're talking so much that it's like they're physically here. So that's not an issue, I don't think. What else do we do? We use a lot of the platforms that, folks use to get messaging out. We're big on Teams. So, and then we use a system called Dataforma, which is kind of our dispatching software that helps bring communications in. So lots of different ways, but usually it's just the monthly cadence is, I think, the biggest part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Like that, I've heard from he's kind of a mentor to me. He's been just a wonderful influence on my leadership. He talks about the power of not saying anything. Like if a leader doesn't say anything and you miss those touch points and those opportunities to be able to talk to your people, explain the vision and what's happening, that's when you lose people too. So having that cadence of like consistent communication, otherwise people
Mhm.
are making things up in their head. Is the business doing good? Are they going to fire me? If you're not talking to your employees and telling them what's going on, they can make up what's going on in their head. So I love that. I love that cadence. Awesome. Well, okay. I think I only have one more question. So looking back at your career, what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody that's looking to enter, roofing or the construction industry?
You know, One of the biggest challenges that I faced, and I think is something that I hear more and more, um, is the self-limiting thoughts that we give ourselves. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm too young, too old, too this, too that, whatever it is. And it keeps us from growing. And I think that if we would focus more on what we could do, that more can be accomplished. One of the things that I did, and it was pretty early on, it was a few years into my roofing career. I had never been on a roof. I had just been in the office. And it happened to be that I went to go meet with a client. It was one of those like fluke things that I was last minute, like, hey, let's go. And they said, hey, we want to go get on the roof. And I'm in heels, which is great when you're on a roof and you can poke holes in it. And and I've never been on a roof before at this point. And I said, let's go. And I had to fake it till I made it. So I looked like I knew what I was doing. I walked up that ladder. I watched the first person go up, and then I did it. And I was very careful to not poke any holes in my heels on the roof. But it's something that had I given myself a moment to think about it, I might have said, I don't need to do this. I'm not whatever enough. But because I didn't have a chance to think about it and I just had to make that decision immediately and go, yep, I'm getting on this roof, it made it easier the next time. And the next time and the next time and the next time. So stopping those beliefs before they happen and really understanding that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And I know that's sort of that cliche, like, we all, when we're kids, it's do whatever you want to do, but it's real. If you
Mhm.
want to do something, do it. Don't let something hold you back from doing it just because you think you're not good enough to do that. So that would be the advice that I would give, especially a woman getting into a male-dominated industry.
Mhm.
It's not as scary as it may seem. And you're probably holding yourself back more than any man would ever hold you back.
Yeah. That's so true. Because women, I'm like, we're so much harder on ourselves, which I'm sure men are too, but we are so much harder on ourselves than I feel like than men are. So totally agree on that. Also, kudos to you for getting on the dang roof in your heels. I would love to go up. I would probably go up on the roof, but I was on heels. I'd be like, I'm gonna pop these babies off and go barefoot. But you went up there and you did it, and I love that. That is
Now I
amazing.
keep extra shoes in my car at all times.
Like I gotta have my running shoes in the back or my work boots, whatever it is.
Yep.
Love that. Okay, what I did say last question, but what have I not asked you that you feel like the listeners should know?
Hmm. That's a tough question. Um, I think what I would say is, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of what it is that you're doing, you need people in your life that are your cheerleaders and that you can be cheerleaders for. And so creating an environment, and it doesn't have to be like a very strict mentor mentee kind of idea, but find people that you emulate or you want to emulate and ask them questions. They're there to help you and to help you learn, but you can also be that for someone else. I remember one of my very first National Women in Roofing meetings, board meetings on the national level. And I wasn't on the board yet. I was actually just there visiting, kind of seeing what was going on. And I met a friend there. And she and I hit it off immediately. She also was sort of, new to this and didn't know what was going on. And so we joked that we were at the kids' table, at Thanksgiving. And
Yep.
so we're watching these powerhouse women just get things done. And we're like, man, I wish I was like her. And man, she intimidates me and all these. And we really formed a bond over that. Well, the following year, we're on the board together. And so we're kind of laughing, hey, we're the big kids now, we're not on the at the kids' table anymore. And I have watched her over the years grow. She was working for a roofing contractor at the time. She made some shifts in her career a little bit, and she actually now owns her own roofing company. And it has seen some phenomenal growth over the last couple of years. And I love it. When she sends me a message that this is going on in her life or that's going on in her life, I'm there to cheer for her. If she's having a bad day, I'm there to pray with her or cry with her or whatever needs to happen. But if we wouldn't have connected, we wouldn't have that. And now we can be that for the, kids at the little table or whatever you want to call it, and help them as well because you never know. You never know what friendships might forge. You never know what you might learn from somebody else that's going to help you in your career or what you can do to help somebody else in their career. So find a mentor, find a friend, and, be there for each other.
Yeah, it's so important. And you're right. It's like it could be, you find something that's very niche of something that gives you and like fires you up and shows you of what you could be one day. Or it could be, just talking about it with a friend or with like another colleague or whatever it is, but finding that buddy to be able to talk to of like, I need to ping this off of you. What of an interview I just had yesterday, she's an executive coach and she was like, a lot of what I do is just hearing what people have to say. And they normally have the answer of what they need to
Hmm.
do, but they needed that sounding board in order to, talk through it and just make sure. And she's like, yeah, that's a great idea. You didn't even need me. You just needed to talk it out. So having that like somebody to do, I think that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, or
Awesome.
just not know, a lot of times you think you're alone. And to
Mhm.
talk to someone that's in the same industry as you or the same space as you, and you're like, oh, this isn't just me. This is happening across, across the board. Oh, well, now I feel like I'm not crazy.
Right. And then it's happening for ones that are so much like, I think that as, oh, people that are a bigger company or a bigger
Mhm.
role than me, you think that they don't have those problems, like that they've never been, I don't know what it is, but we think they're just on this pedestal
Mhm.
and they're not. They've gone through this as well. They probably could give you a lot of, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this and help save you. So I think having that accountability and like being a part of some sort of coaching or mentorship group can help, make it feel okay. Everybody's human at the end of the day. Like they go
Yep.
through things just like we do. So, and not forgetting that because I feel like it's so easy to cower back, feel like you don't have the value or the knowledge to bring to the table, but something that you've learned as maybe a smaller person in the industry might be just what that big head honcho guy needed to hear in that moment. And you have that inside of you. So not being afraid to speak up also is
Yeah.
so huge. I love that. Well, this is awesome. Is there anything else that I haven't asked or that you'd like to tell us?
I don't think
No?
so. No.
Right. This was amazing. Thank you so much. To wrap it up, we've been talking with Michelle Boykin, COO of Rackley Roofing. Michelle, tell us all where we can learn more about Rackley.
Yeah, so you can find out more about us at rackleyroofing.com. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention National Women in Roofing, which is, I think it's nationalwomeninroofing.org. Both great places to look for things, but I'm in Lebanon, Tennessee on West Main Street where we just moved. So if you happen to live in the area and you want to swing by, we're here. So,
Yes, love that. I will be there. I'm right up the road. I'll be there soon. So awesome. Well, thanks again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks.